Guys, so we are going to be getting on today with the next part of this, which is basically three quite short functions and one slightly longer function, just to kind of flesh out how some bits and pieces of this game are going to work before we move into coding the actual game. So this is all stuff I was testing with last time. We'll get rid of that, and we should be starting straight underneath where we've got the def enemy gen. So, first thing that we're going to have a look at today is we're going to actually define the enemy's attack. So, the enemy attack, whether or not they actually get you, is going to be defined by the hit chance, and we also need a couple of other bits from the enemy as well. So, like an attack value, the name of the enemy, because we're going to write that within this function, and then the defense attribute as well, because obviously all these things are going to affect whether or the actual value of how much damage the enemy is going to be doing to our hero. We are going to want to print, first of all. We're going to take the name and we're going to say something like is winding up for an attack. So what we're going to do now, we're going to generate a hit chance, and it's going to be a random .rand int between 0 and 10, and like I said, the wider this number is, the more likely you are to miss, basically. So if you're creating this for a boss or something, you might want to make this number a little bit lower so they're more likely to be able to hit. If our hit chance is greater than or equal to the hit, do this, if our hit chance is greater than or equal to the hit. So if the hit chance, which we're going to be importing, so we'll talk more about that when we actually get the flesh and bones of the game running, if that hit chance is greater than or equal to our hit, we are going to actually hit our target, or the enemy is going to hit the hero. So we're going to print something like it hits the hero. So what we need to do is we need to actually generate the loss, so how much we've actually damage we've taken. So we do loss equals the attack value, which we took in as an argument, minus the defense, and again that's something else we took in as an argument. And to get these values, we'll talk about how we actually get those later on down the line when we use this function, but at the moment we'll just set it up. Something like print, you stagger, losing, and then we'll just write down how much health the actual hero loses here. And finally, what we want to do is we want to return the loss, but we're going to round it up. So we're going to use math, which is another module which we can import, math.ceil, so ceil will round it up for us, and we're going to round up that loss, so we basically don't have a floating point at all. I can give this some more information if I want, but if I do this, it's just going to round up a whole number, and then it's going to return that into the program for me. So math and random are two modules we need to make sure we have. So I'm going to scroll up to the top of my code here and make sure we've got our import random and our import math, or else it's not going to work. So that's if we hit. If we don't hit, we basically got to say you missed, or our enemy is going to have missed. So something just along the lines of print the enemy misses, and then we just return 0. So because basically we're going to take this number and we're going to minus it from our health at some point. If we miss, we have to return 0, because if we don't return anything, it will throw an error saying that, oh, you can't minus a null value from an integer, is kind of what it's going to say. So now what we're actually going to do is we're going to look at our hero's hit chance as well. So our enemy's hit chance is kind of put into here, and we could have maybe used the same function for the both of these, but the enemy has a little more kind of nuance to what's actually going to happen, and the hit chance for the hero is going to literally just work off of the hero's luck. So the argument is the luck, so whatever luck we have. So let's hope that you generate a hero with good luck, or else you're going to be lacking here. Remember, you can pass any value into here, so if you want your hit chance to be based on strength or something else, then pass that value in instead. Again, it's going to be very similar to the previous actual function, but slightly different. So we're going to generate a hit here, so random.randint, and I'm going to do this one between 0 and 4 to make it a bit easier for our hero to hit. And we're going to say that if the luck attribute we've just put in, oh, I don't know why I did that, get rid of that, and this shouldn't be, that should be indented. So if the luck attribute, which we've just imported as an argument, is less than the hit that we've just generated, we're going to actually say that we've missed. So we're saying that if our luck, if our luck is less than the hit value, we've missed. Obviously put something in there a little bit more specific, and then we're going to return false, boolean for false, to say that we actually missed. And we'll look at actually how we're going to use these booleans to kind of look at the next parts of the program when we do the main program loop. For everything else, we basically, so everything else, the end of our option is that we've hit. So we say you hit the enemy, and then we get from there, we're going to return true. Okay, so there's our hit chance there. We've got our enemy attack, we've got our hit chance, and we're going to do a third very, very simple function. I like it. It's just called isDead, and it just takes a health argument. Oh, just get rid of that capital, keep it all consistent. So it just takes a health argument, and we can do this for our enemy, we can do this for our hero, and it's basically to say that if that attribute, so if that health is ever below 1, what we want to do is return true, because isDead is true, so they are true, they are dead. For everything else, it means the health is above 1, so we're going to return false, and that's it. So those are the three main small functions we've got. So one which will govern the enemy's attack, one which is going to look at our hit chance, and one which is going to check whether or not it's dead. If we just run this quickly, it should tell whether or not there's any syntax errors. So there's no syntax errors in there, but obviously we'll look at logic errors and things like that when they're actually within the game. Now, the next part of this is slightly longer, but it is quite, it's a simple one to do. Over here on the desktop, I've got these 5 text files, and they have a number of different items in. I won't show you that one yet. We'll go through these ones here. So these are different pieces of loot which our character can pick up when they defeat an enemy, and they will affect our character's attributes. So for example, this range text file, you can pick up a wooden bow and it's going to increase your range by 10, an iron bow will increase your ranged attack by 15, a diamond bow is going to do it by 20. It's all the way through it. You know, we've got defense stats here, which is shields, and they're all the same as well, and we've got magic, and we've got the attack one, which is swords. So the way to lay these out, a couple of different points to make sure you do, is everything is separated by a comma, no spaces. I'll just get rid of these spaces here, and a comma at the end of each line. So I will link these in the GitHub as well, so you can just grab them from there if you want. But you can add in, the way we're going to program this is you can add in as many different items and values as you want, and it will always update and play regardless. You will never have to change the code. Once this loot code is set up, all these text files, it will cycle through all these different text files and pick a piece of loot for you. It doesn't matter how big that actual text file is. Now the only text file that's different, so they're all exactly the same, all set out exactly the same as just said, all these spaces. Try not to put these spaces in. It does sometimes work, but more consistent without them. And make sure there's no extra line at the bottom, because that will sort of throw an error. The items is slightly different. So with the items, because they could affect a number of things. So, you know, basically all my items at the moment are either going to affect luck or they're going to affect health. So I actually could have done them all like this, but I was finding that actually this is probably going to be quicker to do it this way. It'll be less coding, but you'll see when we go to it in a second. So we've got the name of the item, the amount it's going to affect, and then the attribute it's going to affect. So if you want 10 different luck items, you can write down 10 different ones here, but they all have to have a third attribute here, which is luck. And same for health. You could have like a small health potion, mid health potion, high, super high, all the rest of it, but they all just have to have the same health attribute at the end to tell the program this is what we want to be looking at. Okay, so like I say, I am going to link those, but just one more time here, just so you know. So we've got the name of the item, the value it's going to go, and then the actual for this item's text file, the actual attribute it's going to affect. All the other ones are just set out with the name of the item and the value it's going to affect. So range, this is going to add 10 to your range, for example, and commas in between. The 5 text files I've got are items, range, defense, magic, and attack. Okay, right, let's get on. So, like I said, this is not a difficult one really, it's just quite long. So we're going to define it as loot, and we're going to say that it's going to take our luck attribute into consideration, and it's going to take we need to actually import the character into this as well, so take our character as an argument. And again, this is going to have a lot of that random.randint again, so random.randint, and then between 0 and 4. And then this is just to check whether or not we're actually generating some loot. So like if the luck is less than our loot chance, we are basically not going to generate some loot. So we're going to say print no loot for you. Something like that, you know, make it a little bit more nuanced than just that. So if you get past this check, so basically this means that a piece of loot will be generated for you, so you are lucky enough. So that's why it's good to have items in which affect your luck, because if you end up generating a character that's very unlucky, you need some items to actually kind of boost that value. So we are going to first of all select which table to actually look at. I've got 5 different text files, so 5 different tables. So these are 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So basically I want a table number, we want to randomly generate this so you know what's coming, equals random.randint, and I'm going to start from 0 and I'm going to go from 4, and that's going to be all 5 of the different tables, bearing in mind obviously that we start at 0. We are going to create a list called loot table list, and it is going to include all of the different loot tables. So it's going to have items in it, it's going to have ranged in it, and that's all of them. Make sure you've spelt them exactly as they appear in the text files, or else they will not work, they won't open properly, okay? So the item type is going to equal the loot table list and then the table number we've generated. So what we're saying here is pick a random number. This random number is going to grab one of these, and then we basically just whatever it grabs, so say defense, we're going to save that into item type because we're going to use that in a minute. So save just writing the whole thing out again and again. Now what we want to do is we're going to open that file, so file equals open, and in order to open the file we're going to do item type, which is this variable here, plus, and the speech marks .txt, and then we're going to do open it in read mode. Okay, so that's a little cheeky way to open a file there. So, you know, some people would have looked at this and thought, oh, I've got to open 5 different files, but if you do it this way you can just open them all, whichever one was needed. And then once we've done that, we're going to read all the lines. So lines equals file.read lines. Something along those kind of lines. Print the enemy dropped a. And then we're going to generate what we've actually dropped. So we need the item equals random.randint 0 and the length of lines. Okay, so just explaining this piece of code here, lines actually saves every single line into it. So lines saves these, if it was ranged, it would save these 3 whole lines into it. Now to access one of those lines, if it's saved all 3 of it, I can just do lines and give a position. So line 0 would be the top one, lines 1 would be this row, and lines 2 would be this row. What I'm saying here is we're going to generate that position in a second, and I'm saying generate a random number, so we can pick one of these lines at random between 0 and then the length of lines minus 1. We do it the length of lines minus 1 because len is actually going to tell us we have 3 lines. But obviously our indexing starts from 0, so if we looked at these it would be 0, 1, 2. So although it would work for the majority, if we ever ended up picking 3, it would give us an out of range error. So this is a way just to make sure that we don't get that out of range error. But anyway, so we've picked a line now. So this basically is going to pick us a line, and now we're going to kind of put these two together. So we're going to say the item line that was picked equals the lines, which was here that we read in, and then the item, which was the random number generated here. So that's going to pick us out, the whole line there. So now that we've got the whole line, we want to split it. So we want to take so at the moment we've got, for these ones, we've got the name of the item and then the value. So if we split this line now, 0 would be the name of the item and 1 would be the value that we want to actually change, our character's attributes that we want to actually change. So what we want to do now is we want to do split line, or split item line, I think I called it, equals the item line dot split, and we are splitting it by the commas. Okay, so that's now going to split it. So now we can select 0, so split item line 0 for the name, and then split item line 1 for the attack value, for example. We are going to make a new variable called name, and we're going to save split item line 0 into it, because that's that will always be the name. And then the value, so like the attack value or something like that, we're going to save split item line 1 into. So we don't actually need to do this. We can reference these by their positions the whole time through, but it's easier if you do it this way because you'll be able to see what you're looking at in your code and what you're actually kind of adding and minusing. So what we want to do, let's just print out the name as well, because we've said here the enemy dropped A, but we've never actually said what it dropped. So if we print out name now, it's going to print out position 0 of split item line, which is the name that we actually saved. Now, what we want to do is we want to have a look here, and we want to now apply whatever item it is basically to our whatever value we've got to our attributes. So we're going to look at the item type variable up here. So the item type variable is basically just one of these. So depending on what is in the item type, so depending on what type of item we've got, will depend on what attribute we actually need to look at. So if the item type we've actually generated is attack, what we want to do is we want to set a new attack. So we've actually programmed a load of getters and setters, and we're going to use those getters and setters to actually access the different attributes of our character. We could access them directly, but that's not good programming practice to do that. And although Python's very forgiving and Python will let you access them directly, it's much better to use the getters and setters methods that we've actually used. And if you get used to using them in Python, when you then go to use them in other languages, it'll be an absolute breeze. So we're going to look at this now. So gen character, that's that character's name, and look at its method for setting its attack. Set attack. So set attack actually takes a number. It wants me to put a number in there to set its new attack to. So the new attack is going to be whatever the old attack is plus the value which we've generated on this text file. So in order to get the attack, we need to use the getter as well. So we're going to do gen.character dot get attack bracket bracket, and then we're going to plus the value which we've got here. One thing, sorry, I just forgot to do this. This value at the moment is actually a string. We need it to be saved in there as an integer. So we're going to do int split line 1. Okay, or else when we add it here, it's going to throw an error. It's going to say you can't add a string to a number, you maniac, it's not going to work. And what we're going to do now is we're going to just print out something like your new attack is, and we're going to use that getter again to actually get our attack. So print gen character dot get attack. It might seem like quite a long way around doing it this way, but it's much better for you in the long run to learn this object-oriented getters and setters approach to accessing attributes. So I've done that for attack. I have some other 5 text files in total to do. I'm going to now quickly go through doing the ranged, defense and magic, and we'll look at the items in a second. Okay, right, so you should see there I've literally just done attack, range, defense and magic, and it follows the exact same pattern as all the rest of it. So all I've done is for a ranged, I've just called the set ranged, and then I've called the get ranged and added the value to it, and then I've printed out the get ranged. And defense, I've called set ranged, added the get, and so on and so on. So they're all exactly the same, but just check you're not doing 2 of the same thing. So check that it's attack, range, defense and magic, and you've done it consistently if you've kind of copy and pasted some of your code and the rest of it. So for everything else, basically, it is going to be inside this items folder, text file. So what we want to do is we want to look at this position here to work out what we want to do. So if you've picked an item, what we need is we apply these items to the character's luck or the character's health. So again, you could have made 2 separate items folders, but doing it this way means you can have tons of different attributes with that affect all different things. You know, speed, charisma. If you want to do kind of like an RPG, you do tons of them, and then you can just add them all into the items folder and then generate them actually here, generate them changing here. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to say for everything else, basically, you've selected an item. And we need to check that 3rd position first of all. So if the split item line position 2, so that's the 3rd item on the line, remember, is the same as the word luck. Okay, remember it's got to be spelled exactly the same as in that text file. So we've got the luck here. What we're going to do is we're going to, exactly the same as before, we're going to do gen character dot set luck, and we're going to add our luck exactly as before. Oh, one thing just to change here, sorry, I forgot that all of these gets need a bracket at the end of it, so let's make sure we do these brackets, and then bracket on our get luck, because we're actually a function. That should now be better. I might throw an error, we'll work that out in a second. So for everything else, basically, so in my case, actually I'll do another elif, because then you can do as many elifs as you want. So elif, the split line 2 is actually equal to health instead. So if this is equal to health, what we want to do is we want to do exactly the same. So we're going to do use the set health attributes. Health attributes, and then your new health is this, and then we're going to get the health here. I think I know what I've done. I've added an extra bracket here. Let's get rid of these extra brackets and see if that works. That's better. Okay, and that is it. So although slightly longer, it means that now we can add in as many different items into any of these text files. If you want to add an item which affects a different attribute, you can just call it in here, then you can just give that new attribute here, and then you can just, well, you will have to code in that attribute here, but everything else, all of these ones here, you can just add as many items as you want into here, and then you're all done. Let's actually give it a test and see if it works. Check if it works. I've literally just had a look here and realised I've done gen dot character for some of these. I think I've done it for all of them, which sucks. So all of these, they shouldn't be gen dot character. It's gen character dot, and then whichever thing we need to do. So gen character, remember, is our attribute name. A bit of a brain melt there, so just make sure we've got gen character. Stupid because I've done it all on the other side, but anyway, never mind. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to generate a quick character. So I'm going to use my my hero class, and I'm going to generate a character. I'm just going to call it gen character. I don't have to call it that. This function will just turn it into gen character if I just pass it as the second argument. But I'm just going to call it gen character for the ease of that, and I'm just going to give it these attributes. So I've got a health, an attack, a defense, and all the rest of it, and a name at the end here. To call the function, because I've not actually programmed the main bit here, I'm going to call it a number of times so that we can actually see it working. And I'm just going to pass it a value of 100 so that it always triggers. So the luck here, I'm going to pass it as 100 so it always triggers this else bit, and it never not generates any loot for us, because that would suck, and we want to actually make sure it's generating loot. And then I'm going to pass it the gen character as well, because remember it's actually going to be using the getters and setters, and we're going to print all the characters variables out at the end to see how it works. So let's run it and see if we've got it working. Okay, so we've got a lot of different items being generated here, and then we'll check out what's going. So we've got diamond shield being generated, iron sword, 4-leaf clover, and we can see here that we've got new attacks being added too. If we look at our starting attributes here, let's check the attacks. That's the easiest one. That's 10 at the beginning. I've generated 2 swords, that's going to affect the attack. My 4-leaf, I've got a 4-leaf clover as well here, so that's going to affect the luck. And then at the end here, we can see all my new attributes. So I've got 60, so we've added to all of these attributes that we've actually generated at the beginning. Okay, we can see the difference there. So those 4 functions are going to kind of make up the basis of the main battle state that we're going to be getting into in the next video. So I hope you found that useful. I will put all the code on GitHub as well for you to grab that, because there's a couple of errors in there, so hopefully you corrected the errors as we went. But if you've got any questions, leave them in the comments, and next week will be the next part of this. We'll start fleshing out the actual battle pass.